get to hear so often is leading yourself. Bill Hybel says, your toughest leadership challenge is not the people you lead, it's leading yourself. And there is a correlation between the kind of leader you are and the kind of person you are. And that's what we want to explore today. Our subject is self-leadership. Welcome very much. Let me begin by giving our panelists a chance to just tell us briefly, what is your understanding of self-leadership? Why do you think it is important for us as delegates in this conference? Let's begin with Madam Serah.
Thank you. Praise the Lord. Self-leadership. My understanding of self-leadership is that positioning where I place myself or you place yourself to remain a leader in a situation where boundaries have shifted. That you can still stand out as a leader in a situation where you do not have direct direction or being given very clear guidelines on the do's and the don'ts. When the boundaries have become gray and they have shifted, that you can still stand out as a leader.
Thank you.
Being motivated purely by your values and maybe I stop at that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's hear from Eric. Why is it important? What is it and why is it important?
Good morning. Self-leadership, if we are to appreciate it well, would beg that we ask ourselves from a Christian perspective, what is leadership? Because generally we know leadership is influence, isn't it? But Christian leadership takes it a notch higher. Christian leadership or leadership in the Christian's life appreciates that leadership is a stewardship of influence. In other words, there will be accountability at some point. It's a stewardship of influence for the advancement of God's agenda. It is not for self-aggrandizement, it is for the advancement of God's agenda. Now, if I am going to be a true Christian leader, then I need to know the way and then go the way in order for me to effectively show the way. So self-leadership entails those first two things, knowing the way, then going the way, and then thirdly showing the way. And we show the way not just with our words, but with our lifestyles. It's not either or, it is both and. I show it in my conduct, and I show it in my words. Why is it important? Because you asked that. I could say a lot of that, but allow me to say 2 or 3 things on that. It is important, number one, because there is divine sanction for it. The reason why we beat ourselves and bring our bodies to subjection is because God requires it of us. It is important because in self-leadership we are first and foremost showing reverence to God, who has, for example, called us and told us, hey, watch out, because if any of you leads any of these little ones astray, then he would be in trouble. It is also important because God has said, Titus 2:7 and 8, in everything set them an example by doing what is right. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you be ashamed because they have nothing bad to say against us. Titus 2:7 and 8. So it's important because, number one, there is divine sanction for it, and I wear you out, trying to show you various portions of God's word that would bring forth the fact that self-leadership is important, not because of some social good it brings, but first and foremost because God is making a demand upon us. But secondly, think of an iceberg. And an iceberg has a tip and it has a base. The tip is above the water. Typically around 10 to 30% of the iceberg is above the water. The base, which is 70 to 90% 90% is submerged. It is that base that makes the tip possible. You remove the base and the iceberg sinks. In leadership, we are at times so preoccupied with the fruit, the tip of the iceberg, that we neglect the root. And if we are going to have strength in our public performance, then our private philosophies and our private performance must be strong. So if we want good fruit publicly, then we must have good fruit privately. The root before the fruit would be one big reason why, another big reason why self-leadership is important. Lastly, the most effective leaders are not just those who look for compliance from their constituents. The most effective leaders are those who earn the commitment of their constituents. So if you're going to be a leader who has more than just compliance from those who follow him, if you want to have followers who are committed, then you must be able to show them by your conduct that it is worthwhile following.
Thank you, thank you. Roots before roots. Not compliance, but commitment. Leader who knows the way, goes the way, and then finally shows the way. I hope we are picking some of those concepts. Eunice, for you, what is self-leadership and why do you think it is necessary?
Leadership, as we all know, is about inspiring or influencing people to move from one point to another or to achieve a purpose in life. And the difference, self-leadership here is you replace the word people with yourself. You remain alone with yourself. You inspire yourself. You motivate yourself. You direct yourself to move from a point A to point B. So that's, in a nutshell, what self-leadership, in my view, is all about. And why is self-leadership important? Self-leadership is important because self-leadership, in effect, qualifies you to corporate leadership. As they have said, and as and you'll agree with me, you cannot lead people to move to a direction that you yourself have not been to or is not aware. So self-leadership, therefore, is important. If, as a leader, you intend to lead other people, you need to start with yourself. You need to first be able to influence yourself, inspire yourself, direct yourself, motivate yourself to be able to move to the direction that you want to go.
Let's appreciate them. At least we are able to, the concept of self-leadership, being able to manage yourself, being able to direct yourself, being able to have control over yourself so that in effect you're also able to model that to other people, you're also able to inspire others, you're also able to show others how to do it. And it is important, as they say, because the Bible encourages leaders to look at themselves circumspectly within and then be able to deal with those issues that are in us, then that gives us a platform and ability to be able to encourage, challenge, and motivate others to do the same. So as a leader, one of your greatest challenges is how to lead and govern yourself as a person. Thank you. Mrs. Wepukhulu, what is your journey and story in self-leadership? You have worked for many years, you've risen the corporate scene, now you are a manager in a national parastatal. How has the journey been in terms of self-leadership for you?
Thank you, brother. We are told that is what you want. Now we shall maintain that. I actually got my first letter of employment before I finished school. As I was leaving the university, we were already doing interviews, and we used, what are the resources for the university? Transcripts, yes. And I got my first employment, a letter of employment, actually 3 of them, and I had a choice. You know, you discuss among your colleagues. My first place of employment was government. I worked in the Ministry of Transport that time, many years ago, actually 30 years ago. That's when I first began working. I know you are wondering what I'm doing in the office. I'm waiting for you to come. And as a young engineer, I went into employment with an attitude that I want to work with machines. I didn't have too much thought that I am going to do so much people. My interest was that I'll get into employment, I will sort the issues that will come out at work, and I'll go home. But over time, I realized, actually not over time, immediately, I realized that we always have people around us, and there are people who are looking at us. So how has my journey been? I want to talk particularly on the public employer, on the corporate world. I left government and joined a parastatal and then moved again to another parastatal. And a number of you here would maybe want to walk my journey as a person who is employed, not as a self-employed person. How has self-leadership been for me? When I got into employment, first thing that I realized is that things don't look exactly the way they look when you are in college. You know, when you are leaving college, you think you're going to go out as a doctor, and your employer will take you like, this is the person I've been waiting for. Actually, for a long time, I had an attitude of, I only need to get on a panel, and the person looking for an employee will just go like, where have you been? Then I realized that out there, it doesn't matter how your CV is or how smart you sound, you are just one of the many. So what is it that makes me want to stand out as a self-leadership? My Christian character, my Christian drive, the reason for serving Christ actually is the thing that has helped me to stand and to grow. Because not everybody you work with is very excited about your Christian values. We have a lot of boards now. If you go in there and say you are a Christian, on the first day you may not be employed because the Christians have not lived to the word. So I think I just want to echo what our brother Eric was saying earlier on. You know, it is what comes out of you. Those roots that are being established in you today, that when you get out there, you don't struggle to show the fruit. The fruit shows for itself. And I think one thing that has been very, very outstanding and consistent for me is living a life of integrity. And that's not integrity only in what I say, but even in my work. Diligence in the assignments that are laid before me. That my colleagues, when they look at me, they know, that one give her, and it will be done to the requirements expected. Because I think, I say this and I'll repeat later on, I think when I give my example again, boundaries are shifting every day, so that what we call wrong in the workplace is no longer wrong. What we called right is no longer being considered right. A good example is this. Medical cover, for example. You are going to be employed, a number of you, and you'll have a medical cover. A medical cover in employment, especially in the corporate world, is actually an insurance cover. So there's a money, an amount of money that your employer gives to an insurance firm, so that when you fall sick or your family falls sick, that money is used. So when your mother falls sick, is she entitled to your cover or not? Because the medical cover is very clear, you, your family, your spouse, and your children. But your mother has fallen sick. For a long time when I got in employment, I knew that was obviously wrong. But you find someone else who engages you with a different understanding. Is an insurance. It's already paid. So what is wrong with my mother getting covered under my son's name? So your son who is 5 years, your daughter who is 5 years, is being given drugs for diabetes of a person who is 80 years old. But you know, the reasoning is, the bottom line is the money. The money is already, the company has already given that money to the insurance firm. What is wrong with me using it? You see how boundaries can shift? If you do not have your own stand as a Christian, it's very easy to buy into it. Because in any case, when your mom is coming, you may not be having the money to pay for her medical. But the truth of the matter is that you are cheating. Because you are giving your mother your daughter's name. You are getting the issue of shifting boundaries. So the thing that really has caused me to stand, and I want to say again, neither you are senior nor you are junior will always celebrate you because of your Christian values. But you choose to stand. And when challenging moments come, you see them coming to you because they know there's a person in the organization who stands consistently for what is right.
Thank you. Let's appreciate Madam Serah. The whole issue of taking a stand and the whole issue of character, integrity, these are the things that define self-leadership. Thank you, Serah. Eric, what would you say are the key qualities and characteristics of self-leadership? Break it.
As I thought about it, I thought to underscore the fact that we need to realize that we are not volunteering to be leaders. We have been appointed by God to be leaders. And once you come to that place of appreciation, that this is not something I'm doing because I was bored, it's not a pastime activity. I am enlisted in the service of God. Then you put on the same cape that somebody, for lack of a better example, who has been enlisted in Kenya's athletic team put on. They know there are many others who would have been taken to be in this role, but God in His mercy and in His grace has allowed you to be in that role. What then would be some of the qualities, characteristics that I would suggest here? I would rely heavily on 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, we see something of Paul's life and how he led himself. And there are a number of things that were fulcrums in his life that enabled him to lead himself well. Let me suggest them quickly and then allow you at your own time to go and ruminate over them. I might say a bit on them. I'll just quickly mention. One of the things that would come in here would be confidence in God's power. And you see it there. Paul has confidence in the fact that God is able to achieve what he is committed to achieve. It brings in what Sister Serah is saying. I don't need to lie for God to heal my sick mama. I can trust in God because he is powerful enough, and that gives me the confidence to continue doing the right thing when pragmatically it looks better for me to cut corners. So grow in your confidence of God's power. If you do that, you will be a person of tenacity. Secondly, grow in your commitment to God's truth. We have the privilege of having copies of God's word. And in God's word, God has only said what he means, and he means everything that he has said. He has not given us the privilege of editing his word. Be committed to every single truth and principle that God has given out in his word. Do not sacrifice even a small bit of it. It's always a small thing. You truncate this small bit, or what you consider to be a small bit of God's word, and then you truncate another, and before you know it, you've done away with huge and big principles. Just be the kind of person who says that I am committed to God's truth. God's truth for me is the irreducible minimum. Be that kind of person who says with the Lord Jesus that I'm committed to God's word. Jesus says, heaven and earth, it is easier for the heavens and the earth to pass away than for a dot or an iota with God's word to pass away. In other words, it's easier for the Milky Way galaxy to be done away with than for a dot in God's word to be done away with. That's how God is serious with his word. And so if he said it, be committed to it. Thirdly, be be one who appreciates you are commissioned by God's will. You're not volunteering. God in his wisdom has ordained for you to be in the particular campus where you are, to be in the marketplace in the particular positions he has placed you, to be in the various churches that he'll be sending you to. You are there because of God's will. And if you are there because of God's will, it gives you confidence. It gives you the kind of confidence that Paul had. Fourthly, be compelled by a knowledge of God. Just grow in your knowledge of God. Those who know their God will grow strong and they'll do exploits. Grow in your knowledge of God. And then finally, be consumed by God's glory. Be that kind of person who is always living their life, and the cry of your life in what you think, in what you say, in what you do, is I want at the end of this for people to say, Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone in the glory.
Thank you, thank you. The 5 C's. Did I hear 5 C's? We got confidence, commitment, commission. Some people are just repeating one all the time. Commissioned, commissioned, commissioned. They are dying with the one that they got. But there are 5 C's. Thank you, thank you. I would also add one, not a C, but it's about self-understanding. Knowing who you are. It's not easy to lead others if you don't understand yourself. Understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, understand the great things you do well. It is important to know yourself. Self-awareness is part of self-leadership. All right, thank you. Now let's come to Madam Eunice here. Just helping us to contextualize self-leadership within the context of, we talked about leadership upward, downward, all the dimensions of leadership. How does self-leadership fit in? Talk about self-leadership with regard to other forms or levels of leadership.
Of course, we know what upward leadership is, downward leadership, horizontal leadership, and self-leadership. And just to explain a bit, horizontal leadership is about how, as a person, you are able to convince, influence, or to inspire confidence in your peers. How you are able to convince that sharp-elbowed colleague that you have in campus or at your place of work, and convince them to take a particular direction or to achieve certain results. That is horizontal leadership. And upward leadership is how you are able to influence your boss, what they say in other parlance, how you can direct the thoughts of the boss to take a direction that you think as a leader should be taken at that particular point in time. And downward leadership is what many of us are familiar with, how you lead your subordinates. Now, when thinking about leadership, all the levels of leadership and how they fit within self-leadership as a concept, I'm reminded of a Bible character, actually two, but perhaps we could talk about Daniel. In Daniel from chapter 1, we see Daniel is among the Hebrew boys who are taken into captivity. And you see from verses 8, the Bible records that Daniel purposed in his heart not to defile himself with the royal food and the wine, and asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in that way. There, Daniel is taking a personal decision. It's a display of self-leadership. He speaks to himself. He brings all his faculties under control. He has a conversation with them and tells them, look, this is the direction we are going to take. I, as Daniel, have made a decision. That is an aspect of self-leadership. But when many times we talk about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we think that the four of them probably sat and said, this is the direction we're going to take. But we move from verses 8 and verses 9 and 10, the conversation is still between Daniel and the chief, the guard. They are still having a conversation, and Daniel is displaying a a decision that he has taken within himself. That is an aspect of self-leadership. And then when you come down to verses 12, you now see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego joining Daniel. In my view, that is, Daniel has now managed to influence his peers, horizontal leadership. He's offered leadership to the other three Hebrew boys, and they take a position. And you move forward throughout the book of Daniel. Daniel managed to serve during the reign of four kings, Cyrus, Darius, Nebuchadnezzar, and Asa. Yes, and you realize that in all the during the reign of those four kings, Daniel always influenced. He found a way of influencing the thinking of the king. And during the reign of this morning, that when it comes to exercising upward leadership, it requires a bit of wisdom. You need to be very calculated. You look at Joseph, and Joseph in the book of Genesis chapter 37, he has this very interesting dream and he's very excited about it. And he goes yapping out and, telling his seniors the way I had a dream, and in the dream I'm going to be the one controlling how you think. And you see the immediate reaction from the boss, or from the people who are above him, is to rebel. So when you're faced with when you called upon to exercise upward leadership, you require a lot of wisdom. You need to be very strategic, you need to be very calculated, you need to be very aware of the kind of leaders that you are interacting with, and you also need to know the point at which you need to interact to exercise your upward leadership. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Let's appreciate it. And the chairman is not the boss. He's just the first amongst equals. And then we are talking about the people you lead, the subcommittees that you lead, and these are people who look up to you. The integrating element here is how you lead yourself has a bearing on how you lead others, those who are above you, those who are below you. And so it is the central, you would say almost the integrative motif of an effective leader. Good. Let's come to Eric now. And Eric, I just wanted to highlight for us what are some of the, you would call them, disciplines that, or practices that are important as a leader as you try to nurture or develop this thing we are calling self-leadership. What are some of these practices or disciplines you would recommend to us as we grow in self-leadership?
One of the things that if you observe, you will see is that successful people and failures are not so different. Successful people, in terms of knowledge, thank you for the love. It's helped me realize what I said. They are not so different in terms of most of the difference between successful people and failures is not about secrets, it's about systems. A successful person does always what the failure does occasionally. And we want
Please, hold it there. That is what is called a magic moment. Because what he's just said is profound. Please, repeat it for slow learners like me.
Brother Eli, thank you. What I'm basically, and I hope you hear my heart, what I'm trying to pinpoint is this, that you need systems. What you're looking for right now is not so much secrets. You already know so much. You just need systems that will help you to bridge your implementation gap. Because successful people do always what the failure does occasionally. And so you want to discipline yourself to do those mundane tasks daily. You want to be a man. You want to be a woman of habits. A person who can be predicted. And so I'm going to make just one suggestion here. There are many disciplines. There are many disciplines to be one habit I hope to spur you to leave this place having been committed to focus on. J. Oswald Sanders, I remember in second year interacting with his book, Spiritual Leadership, says in that book, habits are formed in you which make or mar life. Now you are in a situation where one of the habits that you need to develop is the habit of managing your time wisely. And I'm not talking about efficiency here. I'm talking about effectiveness. I'm talking about combining your watch with a compass so that you're not just moving fast.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. Eh?
Disregarding
That's another one. Combining your watch with your... Wonderful, wonderful. Continue.
Set goals. What are the virtues? What are the values that you want to embrace? Put them down. And I'm trying to see it in my mind. Maybe later on in the day I could share a template with the leadership. They can then input into it and see if it's fitting to share it with you. But imagine a template, a weekly template that has 6 areas of your life. Just six key areas of your life. Your spiritual walk, your academic requirements, your relatives, continuous development, 6 areas. And then, so those are the rows at the very top, and you set goals there. And then down here you have a schedule where you then ask yourself, this goal is important to me. Where have I scheduled it in the week? So that you don't ask your time where it went, you tell it where to go, isn't it? And on a daily basis,
Yes.
on a daily basis, you become that Christian of Psalm 90 verse 12. Lord, teach me to number my days. And so time, proper time management, my brothers and my sisters, do not squander time. Do not squander time. 100 years from now, all of us here will either be in hell or heaven. 100 years from now. And if you look at it realistically, we are talking maybe 80,000 days from now. I mean, God being merciful, some might see more than 80,000 days, but if you take 80,000 days and divide it by 365, you'll realize you do not have time to waste. You don't have time to waste. And so the one, I could talk about many keystone habits. A keystone habit is a habit that if you changed, other things just change in your life. For example, a keystone habit could be your waking up time. You wake up consistently at a particular time, and just by changing that aspect of your life, there is a trickle-down effect on other areas of your life. So I would like to invite you to kindly consider developing your discipline of time management or stewardship of time. If you do that, you will not be one of the boys, you will not be one of the girls, you'll be different.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Let's appreciate Eric. The discipline of time management. He who wastes his time will eventually have wasted his life. What I like is don't wonder where your time went at the end of the week. I mean, 7 days have gone. What have I accomplished? No, tell your time where you want it to go. It's part of self-leadership. Just building up on that, Madam Sarah, the issue of personal discipline, integrity, personal morality as an element of self-leadership. Comment on it and why it is a big challenge to many leaders in our generation and even in the past. The issue of personal integrity and personal discipline.
Eric, we need to know your church. Many of us might join. and we appreciate seeing what's coming out. And I just want to add on that one very critical thing is how consistent are we? Because the world is watching us. They watch us even when we are not thinking they are watching us. Consistency in what we do. Because we read the Bible, we wake up, we do our morning devotion. Then the application of that in the world where the Lord is calling us to be becomes a challenge. A good example, in Kenya today, we are talking a lot about issues corruption. If you are having a privilege of appointing new employees in your place of work, for example, and you have this non-believer who has excelled in the requirements, and you have a believer who has not excelled in the requirements, they are missing just one item. Who would you take? The believer? You know, that is the challenge that we are missing as a church. Lack of consistency. That we are actually viewing leadership as a situation where I am a leader because people are watching me. Yet the things which actually define us are the things that we do when we are not being watched. That when I am at a privileged position, I shall remain consistent as I would if I was not the one on the privileged. We quote the Bible a lot when we are on the receiving end, when we are not the ones being privileged. When we become privileged, do we remain consistent? I think that's the addition I would want to make. And that is one thing that the world is not telling us. People don't wake up one morning and tell you, now you are the leader. You are already a leader where you are. As Christian students, actually this is where it begins. 30 years from today, when you come to the place where I am now, the things that you are learning today are the things that you will walk through life with. You drop them, then you have to come and start again. So you are already a leader. Practice it, and make it to be so much part of you that you do not have to think. Yesterday, our expositor mentioned something in the introduction part on how do we handle the environment around us. How are we to the unbeliever, to the person in the workplace who is a drunkard, for example. And Brother Eli, just to mention this one, is that a lot of the decisions we'll make, especially in our places of work, are not decisions that are laid down. Companies have policies and regulations that govern how employees are managed. However, the decisions that make a difference are not the decisions that are written down. And one more good example. You could have an employee, for example, who is perpetually late. She's always coming late. The company policy is that you give her disciplinary action today, you give her another one, and you let me say him, and you release him. Yeah, it's good to be careful, to be fair to the girl child, isn't it? Yeah, so
Yes.
and then you see, now you have the privilege of maybe having this employee working below you. As a believer, you want to live to the word. The company policy is that release them, because after all, they're not giving the company all that they require. But there's a possibility that this staff or this employee has a child in their life who is awake the whole night. You're seeing how leadership can become a challenge. It's not necessarily what is written, but what is bubbling from you. When you leave the presence of the Lord, what are you living with? Because what people are looking for is actually wisdom. They are looking for a wise person to make wise decisions where the black and white is not clear. This is the employee who needs that money most. How else can you get her or him to be productive without necessarily having to be sent home? Those are thoughts that, you will keep encountering every day, and that is where you will be separated from the ordinary manager to a manager who is a leader.
Thank you. Let's appreciate her. Wonderful. So what will keep you in the long run is your character and consistency. It's easy to begin the race, isn't it? Most people begin with a bang. But as the race progresses, people just fall off the wayside. And it's also in the race of leadership, consistency. This is practical even for those of you who are leaders. I know most of you, your leadership term is about to end. You don't like it, but it has to happen. Because you have been enjoying the perks of leadership. the front row, isn't it? The one where you are the one who fellowship with the speaker after the fellowship, enjoying the speaker's food, all these things you have been enjoying. We know. But as sure as the sun sets in the east and rises in the west, it shall come to pass. Isn't it? Now here is the thing. Some of you are going for prayer meetings, services just because you are leaders. The moment you hand over, the Monday after the Saturday, the AGM, you will never be seen in the prayer meeting and the Bible study and all these other morning devotions. Then it means you are not a leader from within. It means you are acting. It means you are putting up a show for others. And the show is over, so you have begun yourself. That is not self-leadership. So when you hand over, continue being available. You enter the CU not as a leader, as a member. And because of your faithfulness, that's when the brethren saw that this brother is a good steward. He can manage more things in the house of God. Consistency. Tell your neighbor consistency. That's a key discipline in self-leadership. Now, leadership is hard. How many have discovered? If you have not discovered, then you have not been leading. You have just been in the position but not leading. Self-leadership too is hard. And we want to ask Eunice to share with us what are some of the challenges that as one pursues their journey of self-leadership, they are likely to encounter some of the challenges, and then you can suggest how to deal with it.
Wow. The challenges would be those that are from external, internal, those that come from within you. And talking about the external challenges, I'm reminded of when I joined college, leaving home, coming to first year. The pastor home told me, when you reach the university, make sure you tell everybody that you are saved. So we arrived at the University of Nairobi, the lecture theater then, and all the first years were together. And the VC then, I think it was the first meeting that we were having with the VC, all the colleges were together. And so the VC said, anyone can pray for us, any volunteer to pray. And I remember I was seated at the far corner, the farthest end, and I said, here, I'm coming. Then I went down, ran and held the mic and said, my name is Eunice and I'm saved. Can we pray? I'm telling you, that statement came back to haunt me, and I thank God I did that. The following day, we were going to class, and we were staying at Box, going to Box is the main campus, halls of residence for ladies then. That's what we used to call it. I don't know what to call it today. So we were going to Parklands and went by bus, and the chairs, we arrived in the lecture hall and the chairs were few. So I went and snatched a chair from one of the young men. And the whole class said, and you are saved. So from that point, you see, the whole class was now looking at Eunice, Huyu Kimbelembele, the one who is saved. We want to see how she will live her life in campus and whether she'll manage to pull through. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of prying eyes. People are watching you, and I thank God that that kind of pressure was there. So there would be the external pressure. I remember one day the girls in my class decided to trick me, and they told me we were going for a meeting. Some girls who were not born again. So we were going for a meeting in the evening, and we landed right in the middle of a disco hall. I didn't know. It is 10 o'clock. I'm here with them. All of them are getting drunk, and they're trying to see how Eunice, the saved one, is going to pull through. By the grace of God, I managed to find my way back to Box. And you find that consistently throughout life, that is something that comes to play whenever people discover or realize that you are saved or you are pursuing self-leadership and you are moving towards a direction which may be at a tangent which may be different from the direction of life that they are pursuing. Back in the corporate world again, I'll be giving examples so that from the examples we can pick the challenges and the pitfalls. In one of my first places of work, which was also a parastatal, many parastatals and many companies would be having end-year parties. And you can imagine what happens during end-year parties. So in this particular corporation, I was one of the senior management team. And just before the party, they'll be going around to ask, what kind of drinks are you taking? What spirits do we buy for you? What wines do you want? What type of alcohol? And that's a time when everybody would be going for the most expensive drink, the one that they never even tasted in the course of the year, to just sound stylish and to appear like, so when they came to me, I said, I don't take alcohol, but go and get for me this non-alcoholic wine. So on the day of the party, we around the table, and the CEO says, oh, so Eunice, what are you drinking? I said, sir, I don't take alcohol, but I take non-alcoholic wine. You can taste. At the end of the event, everybody put aside their bottles and they ordered what Eunice was taking. And so that's also an element of upward leadership, being able to control or influence the direction that your peers are taking and the people above. So challenges that you face as you pursue self-leadership, key among them, in my view, would be external pressure. Wanting to run other people's races. It's important for you to know that you have a race. There is no photocopy. You are there to live that life, and after you've gone, history will record that there lived a girl, or there lived a boy, there lived a man or a woman from this date to this date. You never live anybody else's life. And secondly, another pitfall, I would say, is as you pursue self-leadership and as you begin to excel and as you begin to rise, is the pitfall of pride. And looking at some of the Bible characters again, I love deriving so much inspiration from characters in the Bible, so forgive me if I keep referring to them. You look at Joseph, look at Saul, the king. Saul, who later becomes Paul, and Samson, and who else? And Daniel. Bible records that these were people who were considered to be handsome. In fact, one of them, I think it's Saul, where they say Saul was the most handsome man that ever existed at that point of time in Israel, and was a shoulder above everybody else. Again, Bible records Samson. Samson had some very nice personal qualities, which I would refer to as, a head start. So when you find yourself as a Christian leader, having certain talents, attributes that set you apart from others, it is a point for you to seek humility. Because what God has given to you, which other people may take as an advantage, may end up being a disadvantage to you. So pride would easily set in. I think, therefore, it is important to counter that, to seek humility, and to always remember that whatever you are able to do, wherever you are, it is not because you are any special, that it is because of the grace of God upon your life.
Wow, let's appreciate Eunice. There are external challenges and internal challenges. And just like in every issue in life, I think we can trust God to help us. Part of the challenge she's talking about is managing our gifts, isn't it? Or our giftedness. Your gift can take you to places your character cannot sustain. So that you have to manage your gift, because it can destroy you. It can give you platforms that your character is not yet able to contain. And so as a leader, you have to work on your character as you refine your giftings and the strength. Some of you are very good worship leaders, for example, but you're not able to manage other people around you. If one day you are told you be the one backing up and somebody else is leading, you say, no. How can I back up? Why are you denying people, God's people, the privilege of being blessed? Because it is when I lead that the Spirit of God comes down. You are not able to subordinate yourself to others because you think you are God's solution for the universe. You see? Because you are especially gifted. It's a challenge of leaders. And so managing your giftedness, your strengths, so that you are able to make it work for others and not just for yourself. Which ties into what I want Eric to talk about. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. is part of self-leadership. So, Eric, tell us something about emotional intelligence and how that relates to self-leadership. Why is it important, emotional intelligence? Most people know about, what is the other intelligence? IQ. Yes, the intelligence quotient. So let's talk about emotional intelligence here. Why is it, what is it, and why is it important in self-leadership?
Experts who have taught us about emotional intelligence would say there are around 5 areas of emotional intelligence. One is self-awareness, another is self-regulation, another is empathy, then there is social skills and motivation. And I don't even need to belabor the point on how self-awareness is important in self-leadership. When you know your strengths, play your strengths. When you know this is a besetting sin for me, you become brutal with yourself in such areas where you must beat your body and bring it to subjection. And so I just want to underscore something a little before I go on with these 5 areas. We are not going to fall off the horse on the side of becoming worldly as if Scripture is not sufficient for faith and practice. Scripture has not, emotional intelligence has not been discovered by man. It is there in God's word. It is there in Galatians chapter 5, where we are told this is the fruit of the Spirit. And you look at it and you see, indeed, this is emotional intelligence, okay? You see it in Titus chapter 2, where we are told the grace of God has appeared to all men, you know? And what does it teach us? It teaches us to say no, and it teaches us to say yes to certain things, isn't it? So man has not discovered there is dignity in emotions. For some of us who think emotions came as a result of the fall, okay? God created our emotions. Of course, the fall has negatively influenced our emotions. But there is dignity in emotions. There is difficulty in our emotions because of the fall. But because of Jesus Christ, Titus chapter 2, verse 11, there is deliverance of emotions, negative emotions. Let's talk about intelligence. The biblical concept of intelligence is not one that focuses on mental aptitude or ineptitude. When you look at Scripture, when it says the fool says in his heart there is no God, what we are talking about there is not mental ineptitude. We are talking about moral ineptitude. So when we are talking about emotional intelligence, we are not just talking about your capacity mentally to manage your emotions. We are talking about a moral thing here. What we are talking about here is not some optional extra for some few leaders to pursue. This is a requirement for all disciples of Jesus Christ. This is an irreducible minimum for all disciples of Jesus Christ. Because what we are dealing with here is not a mental strength issue, because some have a 5-talent mind while others have a 1-talent mind. What we are talking about here is a moral issue. It is a moral issue. So that when Hebrews tells you, you know, that you need to lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily entangles you. If one of those sins is moodiness, you do away with it. You don't say, I am melancholic by nature. Everyone should understand that I have my bad day and my good day. No. You do away with that weight and that besetting sin. So let's look then quickly at these 5 things. Self-awareness, we've already said that, and Brother Eli did mention it. know your strengths, play your strengths, and deal with your weaknesses. Self-regulation, which is also a key component of emotional intelligence, we've also said, if you manage your time, you find yourself very easily managing yourself. But also, you've got to know yourself a bit more. If you're given to being verbose, like I am, then you need to be very careful not to overtalk, because in much talking, there is sin, okay? So you regulate yourself. How about motivation? We talked about the glory of God being our key motivation, okay? Then empathy. You're the kind of leader who listens, who truly listens, who listens to what, more than what is being said, isn't it? And then social skills, how you conduct yourself, your handshake. When you greet people, do they feel like you've given them a piece of wet fish, or you've given them a handshake, you know?
Yes.
When you're speaking with people, do you practice? Are you able to speak, while trying to connect with everyone, or do you speak at your notes? Okay? These things are important, and they can be developed, and they're very, and maybe I'll say a bit more if there'll be time, but let me stop.
Thank you. So you remember the 5 components of emotional intelligence? Share with your neighbor just one of them. I don't want to torture you by asking you to say more. Just one. That one. In between, there was a blank space. That is human nature. Now, as we draw towards the end of our conversation, Eric has said that emotional intelligence is something that can be learned. We all can grow in it. So don't say, my parents did not pass on to me this thing. No. We can all learn all those aspects of this thing. Amen? So, Madam Serah, how does self-leadership prepare us to lead others? Are there examples of people who failed to lead themselves and therefore hampered their leadership of others? Both in your experience or people you have read about who, because they failed to manage themselves, they were not able then to offer the kind of leadership that was expected.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to quickly mention on how self-leadership, for example, for myself, has affected my work in employment. One thing that I want to just add on what Eric has said is that I want to put it maybe in summary. Please learn to read your own script. Let's not read other people's script. And for us, our script is the Word of God.
The Fellowship of Christian Unions, reaching students, changing nations.